Hello and welcome to another 5-in-1 Mayaani Talks with me, Mega of Mayaani Jewelry. Welcome if you're new here. This beautiful space was created so that I could not only reflect through my own jewelry choices in the past, make sense of why it is I love working with the materials I work with now, but also encourage you to share your views when it comes to jewelry so that together we can make more conscious choices when it comes to our jewelry, ensuring that our jewelry not only reflects our lifestyle, our heritage, but also our values. Because I personally feel for too long, jewelry has been seen from a very surface viewpoint. I know I've been guilty of that, viewing it purely from a point of view of I need a pair of earrings to match this dress I'm wearing. What's the most beautiful pair of earrings I can find, or which pair of earrings do I think match best? Which pair of earrings do I think make me look more beautiful? A very surface level way of looking at jewelry. And having grown on my jewelry journey, I have become more conscious of how important it is for me to find pieces of jewelry that, never mind if they necessarily match what I'm wearing exactly. I'm wearing that piece of jewelry to make a statement about myself, my lifestyle choices, and my values, which have become increasingly more important to me, particularly when it comes to creating pieces of jewelry that are not only long lasting and heirloom quality, but more importantly, respect a woman's right to be comfortable. Because so much of couture fashion and high end luxury jewelry has not respected our right as women, particularly when it comes to Indian jewelry, Indian luxury jewelry, which I have had more experience with than Western luxury jewelry or Eurocentric luxury jewelry. Um, it's important for the luxury jewelry to respect our right to feel comfortable. And so much of luxury, from footwear, clothing, accessories, is uncomfortable. And really, I feel true luxury should, without a shadow of a doubt, be first and foremost comfortable, because you cannot be the most elevated version of yourself if you do not feel the most comfortable in that state. If you're feeling constantly restricted or uncomfortable in a state in which you're supposed to be wearing a lot of luxury, you're not going to communicate luxury very well. You're not going to feel very luxurious. And feeling very luxurious is incredibly important, alongside owning pieces that help to elevate that feeling of luxury that you already have present, from you looking for more comfort in the pieces you're looking for. So, yes, it's a space that I've created so that we can make more conscious choices about jewelry, ensuring that jewelry is, in my case, as I say, more comfortable. I think that's quite important. Ensuring that when we make choices about jewelry, they reflect our values, which, again, for me, apart from comfort, sustainability is quite important. I feel so much of the jewelry industry has never been focused around being sustainable. You look at all the luxury jewelry that involves high levels of precious metals, and I know we're recycling a lot of them now, which is wonderful. But we're also opening new gold mines in some parts of the world to keep up with the demand for luxury jewelry. And you know, as I become more consciously aware of our impact on the planet and the footprint we're leaving behind, the size of the footprint we're leaving behind, it's impossible to ignore the fact that all this mining, and even the history of mining associated with precious metals, I feel particularly distanced from. It's not a narrative I want to continue and pass on. I feel luxury should never have that association with any narratives that cause us, any narratives associated with environmental destruction or harm, and also should not be attached to any narratives that involved oppression or segregation of any kind. And when it comes to luxury jewelry featuring a lot of precious metals and precious gemstones, there was a lot of segregation. There were people who were kept away from being able to access those particular materials, or people who were robbed of those particular materials, who deserved them and who they belonged to because they came from their ancestral lands. There is no end of women who have been robbed of their voices when it comes to deciding what luxury jewelry looks like, because typically speaking, luxury jewelry, once it became standardized that luxury jewelry is lots of precious metal and gemstones, which was around the Industrial Revolution. Once that became standardized, it was primarily male artisans who created the pieces of luxury jewelry for women, and they created for the male gaze, from a male point of view, through the male lens. And typically speaking, back then, around the time of the Industrial Revolution, viewpoints of women were very much objects of desire, objects of affection, lustful objects, objects to lust over, and just basically performers. We were not really very much seen around that time in history for our voices, for our opinions. We were not valued for our intelligence. that was not something that was credited in any way or seen as beautiful. So it's, for me, shifting away from all these narratives is important. And as I go on my journey of becoming more conscious about luxury jewelry and picking all these narratives, deciding which narratives do I want to specifically carry forward and carry on and pass on through my jewelry, but also which narratives encourage you to think about which narratives you want to continue to uphold and honor and pass on through your jewelry choices. This is the reason why this space was created. Now, if you've looked at my previous videos already in 2026, I have discussed with you some beautiful art forms across India. We've discussed pearl embellishment and moti bharat. I now want to move on to discuss Aari with you. Now, Aari, I did not know it by this name. I have seen the Aari embroidery technique quite frequently, actually. There's lots of mesmerizing videos you can see and lots of footage on it. It has been known as it traveled across the globe by another name, which I'll come upon in one of my facts in a moment. But essentially, this art form I was not aware of as Ari, although it is, fact number one, the art form that is essentially almost like the backbone of majority of our global couture industry. And Ari Biro, it's incredible the power it holds. It has formed essentially the backbone, pretty much, of the entire global couture industry. That's quite phenomenal in itself. Fact number two, Ari is a technique that uses a hooked needle to create continuous bead stitches that allows you to just work at speed to basically embellish pieces of whatever it is, jewelry, pieces of clothing, accessories, at high speed, embellish them with beads, with glass seed beads specifically. So it's a beautiful technique and it allows you to be very efficient, allows a great deal of control. However, fact number two, the speed that you see, it's important to recognize, is not in any way a reflection of the easiness of this technique. It does not make this a mass produced technique in that sense. It is still slow made. Yes, it doesn't look slow, but the speed that you're seeing is years, literally years of repetitive, mindful, concentrated effort to master this craftsmanship. And it's through those years of repetitive training and practice to master this technique that the speed develops. So the speed you're seeing is the speed that you're seeing in artisans who've been doing this for a very long time. You see an artisan is very new to this technique, they're going to be slow. So it allows you to produce pieces at surprising speed, considering it is handmade. But that speed is purely attached to the degree of experience the individuals have. Now, I, for example, with my pieces, I still feel they take a while. But people, no end of time, comment saying, I honestly thought your pieces took longer than that to make. But that's down to my experience. I have been doing I've been creating beaded pieces of jewelry using fine glass seed beads for over 20 years now, since I was 16. So you can imagine the speed with which I can work, the precision with which I can work, and that is simply through dedicated, passionate commitment to practicing the art form. Fact number three, Ari, as I said, underpins much of our global couture, but the sad thing is, so you see it in bridal gowns, you see it in couture gowns, in footwear and bags and accessories. I'm looking at my notes briefly. Most of those rely on this Indian technique, but unfortunately, it is not properly credited. And that is because of fact number four, as it traveled across the globe, this technique ended up being renamed. So you may know it better as Tambour bead embroidery. Tambour. And that is essentially Aari bead embroidery, but it was renamed. And having been renamed, what essentially happened when it was renamed was all of its connections to its original origins and roots were basically severed. And in doing that, now you have luxury, high fashion couture pieces being produced with tambour bead embroidery, which does not actually reflect accurately or actually the origins of the art form behind those luxury pieces, which I would argue when it comes to true luxury, it doesn't mask. This is fact number five. True luxury does not mask its true origins or the hands behind its origins either. And we know in the global couture industry, there's no end of reports of how the actual hands, the artisans involved in the Ari bead embroidery behind these couture gowns and pieces are not properly named or credited. In many cases, they are very vaguely referenced, if anything, but not properly credited. And I would argue that true luxury honors where it has come from, honors its roots, honors its origins, Are those the hands that have been involved in creating the pieces of luxury? And I feel that as a more conscious person investing, a more conscious investor in luxury pieces, we should demand that awareness and knowledge and information. It doesn't detract from or diminish the beauty and opulence and luxury of those pieces in any way. It honors the stories and voices that that piece stands for, and ensures that the people who are responsible for creating these beautiful pieces are fairly compensated for their time and energy, without which the pieces will not be born. Of course, by doing away with crediting them, what it means is high fashion design houses can pocket most of the profits without actually paying these individuals fairly. And they, meanwhile, are struggling to keep their families supported and fed and roofed and housed, if you like. And that just doesn't seem fair to me. So I bring my question to you today. Can true luxury, or can luxury truly exist if the hands that created it remain unseen, if the hands that created it remain invisible? I welcome all of your thoughts as always. And even if they're not related to the content of this video, if there's particular comments you want to drop about your own insights into your jewelry journey, if you have become more aware and more conscious about the choices you're making, I'd love to know. I'd love to know if there's particular content you'd like me to make on the topic area of becoming more conscious about our jewelry. If you enjoy the content, of course, please feel free to subscribe. At the very least, hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, but perhaps you're not entirely sure if this space is for you, and that's fine too. And equally, if you want to keep on top of my videos and see when the next one is, because maybe you're curious, you don't want to subscribe, but you're curious, the notification bell is very helpful. I wish you a beautiful week ahead. Remember, because your jewelry should always be more than just an afterthought, and I will be back again soon. Bye for now.